All right, in this video, I'm going to be talking about how you can actually make your cold emails work. More specifically, how you can make them get more people interested in your service, get more people on sales calls with you or your sales team, and ultimately drive more revenue. This is coming from someone who has sent millions of cold emails himself on behalf of dozens and dozens of customers at our cold email agency. And so I might have a thing or two I can share with you watching this video. I know you're busy, so let's just get straight into it. Number one, we're going to be talking about how you can measure if your cold email campaigns are working. So maybe you realize you're actually doing some stuff right, and you can pat yourself on the back for that and realize what you're doing wrong, or at least give you a framework on how you can measure to see what is successful or not. And number two, we're going to be talking about the 5 biggest impact changes that you can make to make your campaign results skyrocket or generate more results. And I saved the best one for last, so watch to the end of the video. You're going to want to watch all this content if you're going to want to make sure your cold email campaigns work. So first of all, I'm going to talk about how you can measure success and see that your cold email campaigns are working in the first place. In the screenshot here is from our onboarding deck that we present to our customers when they onboard with us and we manage their cold email sending. And we want to educate them on the 4 different KPIs that we use to kind of measure success. And so I'm going to share this with you to show you guys what you can measure to see if your campaigns are successful. So the 4 different metrics are: number 1, email sent. So how many total emails are you sending out? Number 2, reply rate. So what is the total percentage of people that respond to your emails? And we calculate this based on emails sent. Now, I'm not going to get super technical, but all the email sending tools calculate it on leads contacted, not emails sent. So you can kind of fudge the numbers if you send a bunch of follow-up emails and make your reply rates look really crazy. We're caring about how many emails we're sending to how many replies we're getting, including all different responses: out of office, interested, not interested, whatever. Number 3 is positive reply rate. So what percent of the people that did respond are interested? So let's say if you get 10 replies and one of them says they want to get on a call with you, that would be 10% of your replies being interested. And then meetings booked. So what percent of the people that say they're interested want to get on a call with you? These are the 4 KPIs we measure, because if you have these 4 KPIs, you can get a pretty good feel of if your campaigns are successful or not, or on the right track, and also get a pretty general idea of what you can troubleshoot to actually improve results. Now, I'm not going to get super in the weeds with it. All you really know on how to measure success: reply rates, you're looking for about 1 to 2% of total sends, not leads contacted. The exact number varies by headcount. So if you're reaching out to more enterprise markets, it could be fine that your reply rates are less than 1%, but this is just a general target. So if you send 10,000 emails, you're looking for about 100 to 200 replies. Now, in some cases, it's less than that. The next thing is positive reply rate. So out of that 100 replies, you're shooting for about 5 to 15% of them being interested. And then lastly, meetings booked. I say 20 to 30%, but it can be anywhere from like 15% of interested people to 50% of those people convert into calls. Now, again, this varies by a lot of factors, but these are some general benchmarks. Again, after sending millions of emails, this is what it typically averages out to across a lot of different offers. Now, you watching this video might have a super special service that either is particularly good or particularly bad. And so again, take these with a grain of salt, but this is how you can roughly measure success. Now, again, because these are general benchmarks, the purpose of this is not to immediately say, okay, if any of these are below, then you have some giant issue, but it kind of serves to show that if you are in alignment with, call it 2 out of the 3 of these benchmarks here, and I'm not including sending volume because that depends on the results you want to get, which I'm going to get to in a second here, but these are rough benchmarks and you can see roughly how you play into it and where you can see the biggest area of improvement and measure your campaigns. Now, emails sent, this is actually the first topic we're going to talk about in how you can improve your results. Now that you have a general idea, hopefully you start to track these things if you're sending cold emails, and if you're not, then you can get a pretty general idea for when you start to send cold emails. First thing we're going to talk about is volume. So this is the point I'm talking about of the 5 biggest impact changes. The first biggest impact change is volume, or how many emails you are sending. Now, I talk about this because this is a very disproportionate way that you can drive results. The more emails you send, the more calls you're booking. And the reason why I bring this up is because I see so many people fail before they even start because they send way too many emails. I constantly see people set up or send 100, 200, maybe 500 emails per day, and then wonder why they're not getting any sort of throughput or significant pipeline generation with their cold email campaigns. If you want to be getting more than like 5 meetings per month, you're very likely going to need to send thousands of emails per day. I personally like to start by sending 1,000 a day. That's like baseline dipping your toe into cold email. Anything less than that, I'm not going to say it's not worth doing because there is some nuance. We're working with a customer who is sending 500 emails a day because they validated cold email before and they're crushing. They get like 20 sales calls per month or more from that. But most people, if you send 500 emails a day or a couple hundred emails a day, you're not going to get crazy results. When I say, crazy, I'm talking about double digit, triple digit amount of meetings booked. This is based on the customers we've served and on my experience. You're typically going to book about 5 to 15 meetings per month with 1,000 a day. So 20,000 emails, you're going to get 5 to 15 meetings booked. This varies widely based on customer, but it roughly averages out to 1 meeting booked for every 1,000 to 3,000 emails sent. Now, to give you some kind of back of napkin numbers here, if you're saying 1,000 emails sent, this might mean, a 2-step sequence where you're sending 500, then another 500. So this might mean, 500 leads get you a call. If you're sending, let's say, a 2-step sequence and it takes 3,000, that might be 1,500 people. So again, the number of leads is slightly different, but as a general rule of thumb, what we've seen it kind of average out to is 1,000 to 3,000 emails sent to get a booked call. Again, varies widely. So if we're using some back of napkin math here, let's assume that you need 2,000 emails to get 1 scheduled call. If you want to get 10 calls per month, that means 20,000 emails sent monthly or 1,000 a day. A lot of people fail before they even start because they send 100 emails per day, which means that you might get 1 to 2 meetings per month. Now, there's going to be someone out there who manually writes all their emails or hyper crazy personalizes it and gets it more. But for the people out there that want to be getting 50 meetings a month, you're not going to be doing that off of 100 emails a day. I just want to be very clear when saying that. Yes, there's edge cases, but for the most part, this is what we've seen be the truth. People drastically underestimate how many emails they need to get someone interested and scheduled on a call. Let's say you send 1,000 emails and let's say you get 2 or 3 people interested. That doesn't mean they're all going to get on a call. Now, if you have a really good appointment setting process, and we can get to that in a second here, maybe that's the case. But I'm trying to give you numbers that you can hopefully overshoot. That way you can overshoot your goals and drive growth in your business. So people typically don't set up enough email accounts or infrastructure. They fail before they start. Set up more emails. I would say if you're dipping your toes into this, start with 1,000 a day, assuming your markets can support it. On the technical setup piece, now how you set these up, I have a bunch of videos on that. You can check the other videos on the channel. In short, you're going to need to buy more domains. You're going to need to set them up and have emails on those domains, and you're going to want to scale horizontally and not just send 500 or 1,000 emails a day from one email account. You're going to want to set up multiple email accounts. I talk about all the technical stuff in the other video. But this leads on to point number 2, is that maybe you are sending enough emails, but they aren't getting delivered. So deliverability is probably the second biggest lever that I see people underutilize in their cold email campaigns or mess up. I see this all the time. People set up email accounts with, some random infrastructure provider or from their main domain or whatever it might be. Hopefully they set it up the right way. They'll send thousands of emails. They'll get very, very few replies or no replies. Now, cold email isn't something where you're exactly going to get 50% reply rates, but you should at least be getting some replies if you're sending cold emails, even if they're the worst ones in the world. You could be sending terrible emails to the wrong people. If you were doing that, people are still going to say unsubscribe, I'm not interested, out of office, something. And so if you're sending 10,000 emails, a general rule of thumb that I have here is about a 1% reply rate. Again, we're talking about email sent, not leads contacted. So if you're saying 10,000 emails, I don't care if it's 5 follow-ups to 2,000 people or 1 email to 10,000 unique people, you're going to want to at least be shooting for 100 responses. Here's the thing. Even if you have the worst email copy in the world, people need to see your emails. And if they don't see your emails, they won't reply. And if they're not replying, they probably aren't seeing your emails. Long roundabout way of basically saying, if you're not getting like roughly a 1% reply rate, you probably have a deliverability issue. So again, there's some nuance to this. If you're reaching out to enterprise markets, I typically see the response rate drop. But quick deliverability check, reply rate, you should be at least hitting a 1% on email sent. I jumped ahead to point number 2 here. And point number 1, warm up score for the guys out there that are sending cold emails. Warm up score you can see in your email accounts tab if you're using a Smart Lead or Instantly or any modern cold email tool. You can see the percentage of warm up emails that land in spam. And if any more than 5% of them or so are landing in spam, that usually correlates to your cold emails landing in spam. Now, for the people that don't know what warm up is, it's basically simulated emails that your email accounts send in pretty much every modern sending tool that boosts your email reputation. And if a more than 5% as a ballpark figure are landing in spam, there's probably a high likelihood chance that your cold emails are landing in spam, because the warm up emails that are sent on these networks typically are very spam friendly, I guess, or deliverability friendly. They're typically something that does not include any spammy copy or anything. And so if they are landing in spam, your main emails are probably landing in spam, and so that's probably an issue. So here's an example with reply rate. This is a campaign we ran for a customer. You can see we sent 4,000 emails, got 81 replies. Back of napkin math, that's about a 2% reply rate. We got a 50% positive reply rate, which is not normal, but in this case, this customer had a killer campaign. Then I went into a cold email Slack channel. I pulled up someone's random campaign. I'm not sure if you guys can see this because this is kind of small, but you can see here 4,000 emails sent, 6 replies. There's clearly an issue here. Now, this is what I'm talking about calculating reply rate based on emails sent, not on leads contacted or anything else. You can see here we have 4,000 emails sent. We have 6 replies. I'm not a mathematician, but Smart Lead here says 0.5% reply rate. It is less than that based on email sent. I think that's about like a 0.15% reply rate. Now, the reason why it's saying 0.5 instead of 0.15 is because it is calculating it as a percentage of open. So this person had open rate tracking on, which I don't think a lot of you guys out there should be doing. Not going to explain that all in this video. But in short, these sending tools, not by any malicious reason, they just want to calculate reply rates based on the ways that people ask for it. They're calculating it as a percentage of opens. And so you can see here, it's saying a 0.5% reply rate, which is already kind of low, but you're shooting off of 4,000 emails sent. We want 40 replies, not 6 replies. So long ways to go here. And this signals that there's probably a delivery issue. If you're not hitting these numbers, these warm-up score numbers and reply rate numbers, your emails are probably landing in spam. Probably need to fix your deliverability. I have videos where I talk about that. In short, it's probably getting new email accounts or testing if there's some little things you're doing wrong that aren't best practice. Moving on to number 3, the third, or not in particularly any order, but another thing that I see that drives a lot of results when done properly is having good lead lists and good targeting. And on the contrary, what I see ruin a lot of campaigns is having really poor leads. So talking about this is probably the most overlooked part of the cold email funnel. I see a lot of people, they'll use a tool like Apollo, they'll scrape a bunch of leads, they'll put in some job titles, they'll send out a few campaigns. And what they don't realize is that they're just taking a big group of people that aren't related in a specific way and have wildly different personas and send the same generic message out to all of them, which will lead to them not responding. This is like going into the middle of the ocean and having a bunch of salmon and trout and a bunch of other fish and using the same bait on all of them. Now, I'm not a fisherman, but I'd imagine that if you use specific bait for specific fish, you're going to get better results than having a bunch of fish use the same bait. So as an example here, let's say you're reaching out to marketing companies that have anywhere from 10 to 500 employees, which is a pretty wide range. But this is what a lot of people do. They'll say, I want to work with companies that have anywhere from 10 employees up to 500 employees. And they want to target CEOs in this example. The CEO of a 10 employee company compared to a CEO of a 500 person company are completely different people that have completely different problems, completely different pain points, and the way that you talk to those people are completely different. So the CEO of a 500 employee company might be thinking about super high level decisions. They're not in the weeds with everything, and they're steering the general high level business direction, versus the CEO of a 10 employee company is really tactically in the weeds. They're probably pressing a lot of buttons. Their boots are on the ground, building everything from scratch. Completely different pain points, completely different personas, but a lot of people just lump them all into the same email campaign, talk to them in the same way, and as a result are appealing to neither of them because you're trying to speak to everyone, which means you're speaking to no one. So there's not much of them being in common despite them being in the same industry. Or I see a lot of people, they will lump industries together. So they'll say, hey, I just want to reach out to people in healthcare. Now, within healthcare, there's hospitals, there's individual clinics. Within individual clinics, there is optometrists, there's chiropractors, there's heart surgeons. And the way that you'd speak to a chiropractor and the way that you'd speak to a heart surgeon or the way that you might speak to a dentist, completely different. And a lot lot of people write their cold email campaigns saying, hey, I saw you're in healthcare, when these people are completely different types of people. When you're in Apollo or a tool like this, you might not look at it like that way, but the reality is that there's probably not as much in common as you'd think. So one really easy way to check to see if you're doing this right now or to prevent yourself from doing this is whenever you scrape your leads, click through 10 of them and then ask yourself if this person, this specific person, would respond to the email you're sending. Not this group of people, but like write your cold email script, look at 10 people and ask yourself if this person specifically received this email, would they be interested? And what you might realize is that you are bunching together a bunch of people that don't have a whole lot in common. So who you're reaching out to has significantly more impact than probably what you're even saying. So assuming your script isn't terrible, having a good list is more important than having, a perfect script. I'll give another example. Let's say you're speaking in an audience and you're trying to sell a service. If none of the people in that audience want to buy your service, it doesn't matter how good your pitch is. Versus on the complete opposite end, if you reach out to people that really need your service, you could kind of mess up your pitch a little bit and still get people that are interested. So in short, make sure you're segmenting your campaigns appropriately. Make sure the people you're reaching out to will resonate with your script. You can't read minds here, but you can take a look at the script or the list before you reach out to the people and make sure that you segment people appropriately. This ties into product market fit. Make sure you know the personas you're reaching out to and what pain points you're speaking to in those emails. So in short, make sure you have a good lead list. Moving on, the next biggest lever that I see people overlook and that drives a big result in whether or not they get money from their cold email systems is having a solid sales process in place. I see a ton of people struggle to close deals from cold email because they're not used to closing cold traffic and they're not used to having to nurture people who don't know who you are. What makes cold email leads different than most traditional types of leads people are used to, which the guys out there that are running ads and doing that type of stuff are probably used to these types of leads. But if, for example, you're a founder and you primarily have grown your business on word of mouth or referrals, most of the leads that come to you already trust you, already have a pain, and had a really good recommendation from someone they trust that gets them more likely to close the deal. Cold email leads, the great news is that you can pick who you're reaching out to, so you can get more enterprise deals, ideal fit customers, and you can pick the people you're reaching out to. Unfortunately, the people don't know who you are. You just sent them a cold email. They don't have a good grasp on who you are and what you do and your value propositions and your case studies. And you sent them an email, you got them interested, and you got them on a call, but they're not jumping up and down ready to buy your service because they barely understand what your product is and how you can help them. Maybe they're interested, maybe the timing isn't perfect. They need to bring it back to their team. There's lots of reasons why people might not close from getting on a call after a cold email. And this a lot in part has to do with the sales process, not with the leads. This is because, again, you're reaching out to a stranger. There has to be a lot more trust built up and a lot more nurture than, for example, a lead that comes from a referral or even a lead that comes inbound. So key sales process elements, make sure you follow up with people. Again, these people probably aren't jumping up and down in the same way that a referral who has immediate pain and needs something tomorrow is, but trying to schedule multiple calls. As an example, if you watch this video and you book a call with me because you need help with cold email, you kind of understand what I do. Maybe you trust me because you see them super handsome and you watch a bunch of videos or whatever it might be. You're more likely to be interested and not need 10 different sales calls to close a deal versus from cold email, you're probably going to need at least a 2-call close just to get in front of them enough to know that they can trust you, that you have a legitimate business and really help them through that process. Also, you're going to want to have a good discovery process where you extract pain. You make sure that they say themselves that they have a problem and they need your help solving it. Establish that they have a need, extrapolate out ROI, show them why your service will generate results for them and help them make more money. Give them case studies. Again, maybe you're watching this video, you want to work with me. You can see all the different case studies on my channel because you're on my YouTube already. But if you send a cold email to someone and you get them on a call, they probably aren't doing a ton of research beforehand. So you're going to want to feed them that information, whether that's before the call with an email nurture sequence, or maybe that's on the call, or maybe that's after the call. So in either way, you're going to want to have a sales process that follows up with people aggressively, that has a good nurture process in place where you can get people interested in your service and make sure they understand what you do, gives them case studies, and gets the pain out of them. Lastly, make sure that you nurture aggressively. I guess I kind of said this already, but these leads probably aren't going to be knocking your doors down because you're the one that reached out to them. That doesn't mean that you can't close them. That doesn't mean that these are bad leads. This just means that you have a little bit more work that you need to do on your sales process side if you want to maximize the system. Cold email leads, when followed up with properly, can be some of the highest value leads because you can filter for large people. You can filter for your best types of customers. You can filter for enterprise deals. But it means you probably have to do more nurturing than someone who comes inbound, which people come inbound might be more aware of your services, but they might not be the exact perfect persona. So reality, you're going to need a CRM to make sure you can track these people, follow up aggressively, not just once, but dozens of times. This doesn't just mean you get off the call, you send them an email, follow up with them again, call them, text them, LinkedIn message, anything you can to just get in front of them again and again and again. A stranger is probably not going to get a cold email, get on a call with you and pay you tens of thousands of dollars unless they get to know you a little bit better. And so you're going to want to make sure you manufacture this in your cold outreach sales process. And that brings me to my last point, which I would say is probably easiest to implement and I see drive a massive difference, is having a good offer or lead magnet that you can leverage in your emails. I've seen our best customers have some sort of free thing that they're offering in their email so that they can entice a stranger who does not know them to become an interested person who's interested in learning more just by giving them a good offer or a good freebie to get them interested in learning more. So the best example I like to give is the little food stand samples at Costco. For anyone who's been to a Costco, you know what I mean. To anyone who's not, basically at grocery stores, they have people giving out little samples of food so that you can taste what their product is. Now, these companies aren't stupid. They're not just giving away free food. They do this because they know that people who try a little free sample that doesn't cost that much are much more likely to buy that food because they had a good taste of it. And so this is true of your business, which whether it's a service business, whether it's a physical products business that has some sort of B2B capacity, if you can give them a sample of what it's like working with you or trying your product, they're more likely to close. You try the chicken nuggets, you love them, you buy some. That's typically the flow. This same methodology works in cold email. The question you want to be asking yourself is, what can you offer someone that is valuable, would entice them on a call, and would help you close deals? I say this because what a lot of people do is that they try and offer something that's maybe easy for them to offer, but is something that's ultimately not valuable for the prospect they're reaching out to. As an example, imagine you went to one of these food stand sample things and they give you a brochure talking about their chicken nuggets. You're very much less likely going to be interested because you want to just taste the chicken nugget. And so the closer you can get to having something that's valuable, that people want, and gets them more likely to close on your service, the better. So as an example, if you do paid marketing, let's say you're a meta ads agency, make them a free creative, run their ads for free for a week. Now, I know that might sound intense and maybe it's not logistically feasible for your company, but the more free, valuable thing you can do, the more likely they're not only going to be interested, but also close the deal. Because just think about it. If you're going to come in and run their meta ads for a week, they're going to have to get you onboarded. They're going to have to tell you about their business. They're already doing so many things that get you more deeply ingrained. And so if you do a half decent job, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to want to close because they are committing a lot up front. Even though it's not monetary, them doing a free trial of your service does involve some level of commitment on their end, and also allows you to demonstrate your service, demonstrate your value, and get a stranger to be interested in what you have to sell. If you sell something physical, send them a free sample. If you do development work, this is just an example. If you do like software development, maybe you build a small feature or a prototype, or again, something that gets your hands dirty in their system and shows them that this guy knows what they're doing or this gal knows what they're doing. And not only does this get more people interested in your outreach, it helps with your close rates as well because they get to see what your service looks like firsthand. It also helps qualify the leads because if they're willing to onboard themselves in your service, they're probably, somewhat serious about moving forward. Now, I know this isn't true in all cases, and so you can add friction to some parts of these process, but it also helps you build trust, and it ultimately helps you get more people interested in your service and close more deals. So even though you're doing free work, it's still commitment from them. It shows they're interested and increases the probability that not only that they're interested in getting on a call with you, but also getting a deal closed. Now, if you made it this far, I would recommend you check out the other videos on this channel because I post a lot about cold outreach. Now, if you watching this video want help directly from me to help you either set up a cold email system or run it on your behalf, you can check one of the first links in the description below and apply to work with me. Otherwise, check out all the free stuff on this channel. Really appreciate you spending your time here with me. Your time is valuable, and hope you have a great rest of your day.